Welcome to Shuffle Source. I'm your host Brandon, and today we are upgrading the Wakanda Forever Commander Precon from the Marvel superhero set. For this upgrade, we are working with a budget of around $25. Our plan is to add 10 cards and cut 10 cards to upgrade this deck without breaking the bank. Then, near the end of the video, we're going to cover a few no-budget options for anyone looking to take this deck even further. Let's get into it. The commander we will be discussing today is T'Challa the Black Panther for 1 green white. We have a 2/2 legendary creature human noble hero that says whenever T'Challa enters or attacks, create a tapped vibranium token. It's an artifact with indestructible and a tap ability, add a colorless. This mana can't be spent to cast a non-artifact spell. Whenever you cast an artifact spell with mana value 4 or greater, put 2 +1/+1 counters on T'Challa. So there are a few ways you can take this precon, however, at its core to me, this is a Voltron deck with an artifact matters theme. Our primary goal is to turn T'Challa into a massive threat capable of winning through combat damage, all while using artifacts as the engine that supports and makes that happen. Now T'Challa also gets that engine going himself. Whenever he enters the battlefield or attacks, he's going to create a vibranium token. These indestructible artifact tokens tap for colorless mana, and they can't be used to cast non-artifact spells. Now it is important to note that you can use them to pay for activated abilities, which actually does give these a bit of flexibility. Now ideally we want to be able to ramp out very large and powerful artifacts while leveraging the vibranium tokens to cast them. Now the benefit of getting these larger costed artifacts on the board is that we get to trigger T'Challa's second ability. Whenever we cast an artifact with mana value 4 or greater, T'Challa is going to get 2 +1/+1 counters, which will steadily grow him into a stronger combat threat. Now, as we upgrade the deck, we are going to lean into that game plan heavily. We're going to improve our artifact package with cards that either generate more value or help us cast our bigger artifacts sooner. And lastly, we are going to make sure we add some cards to make T'Challa even more of a devastating threat on the battlefield. A special thanks to all of our channel members. Your support truly means a lot and we greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to show your support and get access to some exclusive perks, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button below. You can also support the channel by liking, subscribing, and dropping a comment. Thank you. And now let's get back to the video. So we are going to kick off the additions with Adaptive Omni Tool. For 2 colorless, we have an artifact equipment that says equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. Whenever an equipped creature attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal an artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest onto the bottom of your library in a random order, and it also has an equip cost of 3. So I really like Adaptive Omni Tool here. First of all, it is an artifact itself, which will help us grow our overall artifact count. Secondly, this is a great target to put on T'Challa, our commander, since it gives the equipped creature +1/+1 for each artifact you control. That means every vibranium token T'Challa creates is effectively another power boost. Now, as the game goes on and our artifact count continues to grow, T'Challa or whoever we equip this with can become a legitimate combat threat quickly. Now, that attack trigger is also really relevant. Whenever the equipped creature attacks, we get to look at the top 6 cards of our library and put an artifact from among them into our hand. That can help us keep our artifact engine going and helps us with some card advantage and card selection to make sure we're choosing the best artifact for the occasion. Here we have our next addition, Bronze Guardian. For 4 colors and a white, we have a star 5 artifact creature golem with double strike and ward 2. Other artifacts you control have ward 2. This creature's power is equal to the number of artifacts you control. Now, Bronze Guardian is a great budget addition here because it helps protect all of our artifacts and becomes a massive threat on the table itself. Since it is an artifact, we can also use our vibranium tokens to help cast it, which makes it much easier to deploy it ahead of schedule. And because it has a mana value greater than 4, casting it will immediately trigger our commander and allow us to put 2 +1/+1 counters on him. Now, once Bronze Guardian is on the battlefield, it is going to give all of our other artifacts ward 2, which will help us protect all of our artifacts from our opponent's targeted removal. Making our opponents pay extra to get rid of our key artifacts is going to help keep our engine intact. I also love that this can become a legitimate threat on its own. Its power is equal to the number of artifacts we control, which means every time our commander puts out more vibranium tokens or we just play any other artifacts from the deck, we're going to make this creature larger and larger. And with double strike, it doesn't actually take much before it's capable of dealing huge chunks of damage to our opponents. And here we have Chamil the Inner Sun. For 6 colorless, we have a legendary artifact. Spells you control can't be countered. At the beginning of your end step, discover 5. Exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a non-land card with mana value 5 or less. Cast it without paying its mana cost, or put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. Now, Chamil the Inner Sun is an incredible value-based artifact that we can add to this deck. It will immediately give us value the turn it comes out, and it is also a artifact with mana value 4 or greater, which means it synergizes with our commander. Now, that first ability might be easy to overlook, but it is incredibly important. Our spells can't be countered. In a deck that's investing a lot of mana into powerful artifacts, and in a lot of cases suiting up our Voltron commander, making sure those key spells resolve is a huge advantage. Then at the beginning of each of our end steps, we get to discover 5. We have a lot of great spells, artifacts included with mana value 5 or less, so this can really steamroll us ahead of our opponents. And next we have Joyrus Familiar. For 4 colorless, we have a 2/2 artifact creature bird that has flying. Historic spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. So here is another great 4 mana artifact to add to this deck. Again, it will work well with all of our other artifact synergies and does trigger our commander because of its mana cost. Once it's on the battlefield, Joyrus Familiar starts paying us back right away. It's going to reduce the cost of all of our historic spells, which means every artifact and legendary spell that we cast costs 1 less. Considering our deck is absolutely packed with both, that discount adds up quickly over the course of the game. This is just a great way to cast our biggest artifacts or most impactful legendary spells even faster. And here's our next addition, Kutzel, Malamut Exemplar. For 1 green white, we have a 3/3 legendary creature Cat Warrior that says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. Whenever one or more creatures you control with power greater than its base power deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So this card is a great addition because it helps protect our game plan, all while rewarding us for being aggressive. That first ability is really powerful in a Voltron deck, making it to where our opponents can't cast spells during our turn. That means that we will get no surprise counter spells or any targeted removal as we go to suit up T'Challa, cast our big artifacts, or attack in for massive damage. That second ability is also very synergistic with the deck, especially with some of the additions we're adding. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control with power greater than their base power deal combat damage to a player, we get to draw a card. Since T'Challa is constantly picking up +1/+1 counters from us casting larger artifacts, he will almost always be modified on the board, which means he can satisfy this condition very easily. Additionally, there are also several other creatures in the deck that can have its power increased, so it can trigger the card draw on this as well. It's always great to have a good source of repeatable card advantage in any deck, and Kutzel is a great one to add. Next up, we have Leyline Axe. For 4 colorless, we have an artifact equipment. If this card is in your opening hand, you may begin the game with it on the battlefield. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample with an equip cost of 3. So Leyline Axe is a great addition here because it is an equipment that's going to help us push through combat damage. Now, once it's equipped, the payoff here is pretty impactful. Double strike dramatically can increase our commander's damage output, while the trample makes sure that that damage actually gets through instead of being soaked up by chump blockers. Additionally, combined with all of the +1/+1 counters T'Challa accumulates through the game, this equipment can help us end the game. Lastly, you want to call out that if it is in our opening hand, we do get to start the game with it on the battlefield, which gives us a head start on assembling our Voltron strategy. This means once T'Challa or another key threat is on the battlefield, all we have to do is pay the equipped cost and start attacking. Next, we have Machinist Arsenal. For 4 and a white, we have an artifact equipment with Job Select. When this equipment enters, create a 1/1 colorless hero creature token, then attach this to it. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 for each artifact you control and is an artificer in addition to its other types, and it has Machina with an equip cost of 4. So this is another great budget inclusion here. It's an equipment that synergizes excellently with the amount of artifacts that we have on the battlefield. While it coming in and being automatically attached to the hero token from Job Select is a nice bonus, the real reason we're playing this is for the equipment part itself. It's going to give the equipped creature +2/+2 for each artifact we control, which is absolutely absurd in a deck that's constantly adding and playing artifacts. Equipping this to T'Challa can enable us to start removing players with commander damage. Now, I know that the equip 4 cost looks expensive, but it's much more manageable than it first appears. Our Vibranium tokens, remember, can be used to help pay for equip costs, so all of the mana T'Challa has been generating throughout the game with those Vibranium tokens can really help us move this equipment around. We also have other cards like Black Panther's Claws in the deck that will let us bypass the equip costs altogether. And here we have Path to Exile. For 1 white, we have an instant that says exile target creature. Its controller may search the library for a basic land card, put that card card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So Path to Exile is one of the best removal spells ever printed, and it's an easy upgrade to add to this deck. For just a single white mana, we can permanently exile any creature regardless of how large or problematic it is. Yes, our opponent will get a basic land in return, but that's a trade I'm more than happy to make here. Trust me, giving someone an extra land is a very small price to pay when you're answering a game-winning threat or removing the one creature standing between T'Challa and you winning with commander damage. And here's our next edition Sphere Grid. For 1 and a green, we have an enchantment that says, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. It also has unlockability. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have reach and trample. So I really like Sphere Grid in this deck because it's going to reward T'Challa and many of our other creatures for doing exactly what they want to do. Attack. Every time one of our creatures deal combat damage to a player, it's going to pick up a +1/+1 counter. Since our primary plan is winning through commander and combat damage, T'Challa and other creatures are going to naturally keep growing larger with every successful attack. Now the real payoff here definitely is that unlockability. Once our creatures have +1/+1 counters on them, they gain reach and trample. Their reach is a nice bonus for protecting against flyers, but the trample is the keyword that we're really after here. One of the biggest challenges for a Voltron deck is making sure that you're able to get combat damage through and not just being chump blocked by a small creature. Sphere Grid is going to solve that problem for us by allowing us to get trample. And here we have the last of our additions. We have Thousand Moon Smithy for 2 and 2 white. We have a legendary artifact that says, when Thousand Moon Smithy enters the battlefield, create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures you control. At the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, you may tap 5 untapped artifacts and or creatures you control. If you do, transform Thousand Moon Smithy. Once transformed, you have Barracks of the Thousand, which is a legendary artifact land that can tap for a white. Whenever you cast an artifact or creature spell using mana produced by Barracks of the Thousand, create a white gnome soldier artifact creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of artifacts and or creatures you control. So this card is probably one of my favorite additions to add to the deck because it fits perfectly into our artifact game plan from start to finish. It provides us immediate value by creating a gnome soldier artifact creature token whose power and toughness are equal to the number of artifacts and creatures we control. In a deck that's constantly making vibranium tokens and deploying artifacts, that token can become surprisingly relevant. What really puts this card over the top though is its transformation. Between T'Challa's steady stream of vibranium tokens and growing our board of artifacts and creatures, tapping 5 permanents to flip the smithy is actually much easier than it looks. Once transformed, it becomes Barracks of the Thousand. It starts producing white mana while rewarding us every time we use that mana to cast an artifact, spell, or creature by creating another massive artifact gnome soldier token. These gnome tokens can turn into legitimate combat threats on their own, and they will have to be something our opponents deal with. We've now made it to the removals portion of the video, and we're going to start it off with Conduit of Worlds for 2 and 2 green. We have an artifact that says you may play lands from your graveyard. You can tap it, choose target non-land permanent card in your graveyard. If you haven't cast a spell this turn, you may cast that card. If you do, you can't cast additional spells this turn, activate only as a sorcery. So Conduit of Worlds is a solid card, but I don't think it is really the right fit for this deck. It really shines in decks that are actively milling themselves, discarding cards, or filling up their graveyard with permanents they want to replay later. The first ability allows us to play cards from our graveyard, but like I said, because we're not self-milling or discarding lands, there's just not going to be a lot of good opportunities to take full advantage of it. That second ability can be powerful, but it's also very restrictive. Having to make it to where we only cast a single spell each turn is not ideal, with the fact that we're going to often be able to double spell with this deck. On top of that, we do actually have other pieces of recursion in the deck, so us not really having access to this card is not going to hurt us that much. Here we have our next removal, Coveted Jewel for 6 colorless. We have an artifact that says when this artifact enters, draw 3 cards. You can also tap it to add 3 mana of any one color. Whenever one or more creatures an opponent controls attacks you and aren't blocked, that player draws 3 cards and gains control of this artifact. Untap it. This is one of the cards I'm very happy to cut because I am not a fan of giving my opponents value in either the form of card advantage or ramp. Yes, drawing 3 cards and getting a mana rock that taps for 3 is an excellent rate, but encouraging our opponents to attack us to steal it and use it is not what I want to do. If an opponent gets through with an unblocked creature, they get to steal the jewel, untap it, and immediately draw 3 cards themselves. That can be a huge swing, and again, that's not something I want to be enabling. Rather than risk an opponent getting a fresh grip of cards and a powerful mana rock, I'd rather just play artifacts that generate value for us and only us. Next on the chopping block, we have Divine Visitation for 3 colors and 2 white. We have an enchantment that says if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, that many 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance are created instead. So Divine Visitation can be a strong card, I just don't think it fits very well in this deck. While it does upgrade our creature tokens into 4/4 angels, that sort of token production is not really part of our game plan. The few creature tokens we do make are more of a bonus rather than a focus of the deck. It also being an enchantment and not an artifact means it doesn't even synergize in that way. And here's our next cut, Evolving Wilds, which is a land that you can tap to sacrifice this land, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So Evolving Wilds is an easy cut for a couple of reasons. First off, the deck has 38 lands to start with, and after looking at the curve and the amount of artifact ramp we're playing, I'm very comfortable trimming that number down to 37. And if we're going to be cutting one card, Evolving Wilds is a good one to choose. In a 2-color deck, color fixing is already fairly easy, and we don't have any landfall synergies that benefit from this. Next up, we have Martial Coup for X and 2 white. We have a sorcery that says create X 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. If X is 5 or more, destroy all other creatures. So Martial Coup is a flexible card, but I don't think it's a really good fit for us. The biggest issue here is that we're simply not a creature token deck. While creating a large army of soldiers can be powerful, that's not something that our deck is really doing to try to win. We'd much rather invest our mana into building our artifact engine and turning T'Challa into a massive Voltron threat. Now that board wipe mode on it is certainly nice, but we already have other board wipes in the deck that fill that role well. Additionally, it will cost us 7 mana to take advantage of the full effect, which is actually quite costly. And here's our next removal, Palace Jailer for 2 and 2 white. We have a 2/2 creature human soldier that says when this creature enters, you become the monarch. When this creature enters, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the monarch. So Palace Jailer is a fine card, but I think it's just a little too expensive for what it brings to us. At 4 mana, we're really looking for artifact spells that can either help the engine go faster or increase the efficiency of our commander. Palace Jailer really doesn't accomplish either of those things. The removal on this is also less permanent than it looks. While exiling a creature is nice, it only stays exiled as long as we remain the monarch. Depending on the board state, it's not very hard for opponents to get combat damage through, especially if it means they're going to get their creature back. And here we have our next removal, Queen Mother Ramonda. For 3 and 2 white, we have a 3/5 legendary creature human noble that says when Queen Ramonda enters, you become the monarch. As long as you're the monarch, creatures with power 2 or less can't attack you. So Queen Mother Ramonda is just another one of those cards that doesn't quite line up with our plan. And at 5 mana, I would expect the card to provide a much bigger impact. Much like Palace Jailer, this card leans heavily on the monarch mechanic, and that's again not something that I'm really valuing in this particular deck. We're already adding other forms of card advantage through artifacts, so I don't think we need to rely on becoming the monarch to really keep our hand full. Her defensive ability is also quite narrow and requires the monarch for it to be in effect. And here we have T'Chaka, Venerable King for a green and a white. We have a 2/2 legendary creature human noble hero that says when T'Chaka enters, mill 3 cards. Then you may put an artifact or land card from among the milled cards into your hand. You can also pay 3, exile this card from your graveyard. You become the monarch, activate only if you control your commander. Now T'Chaka is a creature that can provide value, however, it doesn't really earn a spot in the upgraded version of this deck. His enter the battlefield ability can certainly help us find an artifact or land, but the fact that it's milling only 3 cards means it can be inconsistent. His second ability also revolves around becoming the monarch, and as I've mentioned several times now, that's just not a theme that I'm really interested in leaning into with this upgraded version. And lastly, while milling a few cards isn't a huge downside, it's also not something we're trying to take advantage of. We aren't really a self-mill or graveyard deck, and we already have enough recursion that we don't need to intentionally fill our graveyard for value. Next up, we have the Spear of Bashenga. For 4 colorless and a white, we have a legendary artifact equipment. When the Spear of Bashenga enters, if there is no monarch, you become the monarch. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has vigilance. Whenever equipped creature attacks the monarch, destroy target tapped non-land permanent that player controls, and it also has an equip cost of 2. So this is definitely a very flavorful equipment card, but to me it just has too many hoops. The biggest issue for me is that too much of this card's power is again tied to the monarch mechanic. That attack trigger is actually quite awkward. In order to destroy a tapped non-land permanent, you have to attack the monarch. But if you're the one who became the monarch when the spear entered, that means you're actually relying on an opponent to take the monarch away from you before the equipment's best ability even does anything. I really don't like having to depend on my opponents for my cards to function at their full potential. On top of that, it's a pretty significant mana investment. You're spending 5 mana to cast it and then another 2 to equip it, for a total of 7 mana before you really get anything that valuable. And we have Wakandan War Panther or Fleece Mane Lion. For a green and a white, we have a 3/3 creature cat where you can pay 3 green and a white for monstrosity 1. If this creature isn't monstrous, put a +1/+1 counter on it and it becomes monstrous. As long as this creature is monstrous, it has hexproof and indestructible. So this can be a decent standalone creature, but I think it's actually one of the easier cuts here because it doesn't really contribute to our core strategy. For one, it's not an artifact itself, so it doesn't help there. And two, its monstrosity ability is also pretty mana intensive. It takes 5 mana to put a single +1/+1 counter on it and unlock the hexproof and indestructible ability. While those are certainly powerful abilities, that's a lot of mana to invest into a creature that isn't our commander. Overall, this is just a bit out of place. I'd rather fill this slot with another artifact or an artifact payoff that supports their strategy from multiple angles instead of a creature that's largely doing its own thing. Hey everyone, I wanted to take a moment to give a huge shout out to our partner, the Mighty Meeple. If you're in or visiting the Concord, North Carolina area, the Mighty Meeple is the local game store to check out. Their team is friendly, knowledgeable, and always ready to help you find exactly what you need. From Magic and board games to minis and more, whatever your hobby, they've got you covered. And even if you're not local, no problem. You can shop for Magic singles and other TCGs at mightymeeple.com. Use promo code SHUFFLE for 5% off your order. Thank you. And now let's get back to the video. We've now made it to the no budget options portion of the video, and we are going to kick things off with Enlightened Tutor. For 1 white, we have an instant that says search your library for an artifact or enchantment card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. So Enlightened Tutor is a fantastic addition because it gives us access to the exact artifact or enchantment we need at any point in the game. Whether we're looking for a key equipment to power up T'Challa, a powerful artifact payoff, or an enchantment that supports our game plan, this card can find it for just a single white mana. One of the things I love most about this deck is that many of our artifacts play very different roles. Sometimes we need ramp, sometimes we need protection, and other times we need a game-ending equipment. Enlightened Tutor lets us adapt to the current board state instead of just hoping we naturally draw the right piece. And here's our next no-budget option. We have the Aether Spark. For 4 colorless, we have a legendary artifact planeswalker equipment with starting loyalty 4. As long as the Aether Spark is attached to a creature, the Aether Spark cannot be attacked and has, whenever equipped creature deals combat damage during your turn, put that many loyalty counters on the Aether Spark. For +1 loyalty, attach the Aether Spark to up to 1 target creature you control, put a +1/+1 counter on that creature. For -5 loyalty, draw 2 cards, and for -10 loyalty, add 10 mana of any one color. So the Aether Spark is a very fun and powerful addition here. First off, it is a 4 mana artifact, which means it will trigger our commander. Its +1 ability allows it to attach itself to one of our creatures and put a +1/+1 counter on that creature, making T'Challa or any other combat threat even larger while ensuring the Aether Spark is protected from being attacked. From there, every time the equipped creature deals combat damage during our turn, the Aether Spark is going to gain that many loyalty counters. Since our entire strategy is built around making T'Challa or other creatures hit as hard as possible, those loyalty counters can add up incredibly fast. Now, those loyalty counters have excellent payoffs here. If we need to get some more cards, we can cash in 5 loyalty counters to draw 2 cards, or if we need a large burst of mana, we can get rid of 10 counters to add 10 mana of any one color. That amount of mana can help us fuel an explosive turn where we can cast multiple artifacts, rebuild after some interaction, or simply just overwhelm the table. And here we have the last of our no budget options. We have the One Ring. For 4 colorless, we have a legendary artifact that has indestructible. When the One Ring enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life for each burden counter on the One Ring. You can tap it, put a burden counter on the One Ring, then draw a card for each burden counter on the One Ring. Now, the first thing I want to call out here is that the One Ring, while a great addition, is incredibly expensive right now. If you already have the card, great, go ahead and put it in the deck. I think you'll really enjoy it there. However, at its current price, I don't recommend you going out to buy one. Thankfully, it is going to be reprinted in the upcoming Hobbit set, so that should hopefully bring the price down, and that should be a better time to pick one of these up if you still want one. With that being said, the One Ring is definitely a very strong artifact that we can add to this deck because it provides us a huge amount of value. First of all, it is a 4-mana artifact, which means when we cast it, we will get to trigger T'Challa's ability. Additionally, we gain protection from everything until our next turn, which gives us a full turn cycle where we don't have to worry about being attacked, targeted, or otherwise disrupted. That breathing room can really be exactly what we need to untap on our next turn and start taking over the game. Now, lastly and most importantly, there's the card draw on this. Every activation draws one more card than the last time, allowing the One Ring to completely refill our hand over the course of a game. Yes, the burden counters slowly drain our life, but in Commander, where life is really just a resource, I'm more than happy to spend a few life if it means drawing cards we need to keep our engine running. And there you have it. After upgrading this deck, we have a final upgrade cost of $24.80, coming in 20 cents under our $25 budget. Keep in mind, this total does not include the no budget options that we covered. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. It really is the best way you can help this channel, and it also helps fellow viewers find these Precon upgrades. So let me know what you think about the Wakanda Forever Precon. I actually think it's a really fun take on the artifact theme. What other additions and removals are you doing with your upgrade? Let me know in the comments. And as always, until next time, thank you for watching.